Part 2, Chapters 5, 6, and 7 of Charles Rex by Ethel M. Dell. This recording is in the public domain. 5. The Visitor. Jake carried out his threat the following day, and Maud remained in bed. A violent headache deprived her of the power to protest, and she lay in her darkened room too battered to think, while with characteristic decision he assumed the direction of the household, provoking unwilling admiration from Mrs. Lovelace, the housekeeper, who was somewhat given to disparage men as "poor things who never did a hand's turn for 'emselves if they could get the women to do it for 'em." He took up a breakfast tray himself to his wife's room, sternly removing his two small daughters, Molly and Betty, whom he found tussling like kittens on her bed, and installing Eileen, the eldest, who crept down like a bright-eyed mouse from the big chair by the pillow at his coming, as her mother's keeper. Eileen was his darling, a shy child, gentle but curiously determined, protective in her attitude towards Maud, reserved towards himself. Jake was wont to say with a laugh that he was by no means sure that his eldest daughter approved of him, but he knew in his heart that her love for him was the strongest force in her small being. Bunny was wont to be impatient with her because she was afraid of the horses, with the result that she would never go near them in his company, but she would follow her father wherever he went among them without a question. It was very rarely that she confided in him, but she always liked to hold his hand. She stood beside him now in silence while he waited upon Maud, and presently, while Maud drank the strong tea he had brought her, her small hand found its way into his. He looked down at her, squeezing it kindly. "We must take care of the mother to day, little 'un. She's been working too hard." "I'll take care of her, Daddy," said Eileen. "And keep out Molly and Betty," pursued Jake. "Yes, Daddy, I'll do that." Maud smiled from her pillows. "My little policeman," she said. "I believe she'd keep her daddy out, too, if she thought it advisable," laughed Jake. Eileen's fingers tightened about his, but she did not contradict him. Only the violet eyes, so like her mother's, looked up at him very pleadingly, and he stooped in a moment and kissed her. "All right. Daddy understands." And Eileen smiled a shy, pleased smile without words. The sound of the telephone bell in the hall made Maud start with a swift contraction of the brows. "That's probably Charlie, Jake. I ought to answer him." "Don't you worry yourself," said Jake, turning to the door. "I'll answer him myself." He was gone before she could say anything further, moving without haste, but with a decision there was no gainsaying, and Maud heaved a sigh and relaxed against her pillows. It was certainly a relief to leave it to him. He returned a few minutes later, faintly smiling, sat down by her side and drew Eileen between his knees. "Well," he said, "I guess it's all fixed up. We're going to give you a nursery governess, Innocence. I hope you'll treat her with respect." "Oh, but Jake," protested Maud. He turned to her. "Yes, she's going to make herself useful. I don't believe in anyone living in idleness. We'll begin as we mean to go on, and she's got to help. I told his lordship so. If she doesn't suit, well, I guess she'll go back where she came from. I told him that, too." "What did he say?" questioned Maud. "He agreed, of course." Jake's tone was ironical. "Said she was nothing but a child herself. He was very emphatic on that point." "Don't you believe him?" asked Maud, with a hint of sharpness. "Not as a rule," said Jake. "Mostly never, when he's emphatic. However, time will prove. She will be here to lunch, and I've told Bunny to meet her with the dog cart." "Are we going to have lessons?" asked Eileen. He looked into the soft eyes, and the irony went out of his smile. "I don't know if I can bear to have you taught anything, Innocence," he said. "You're just right as you are." It was his own especial name for her, and he always uttered it with tenderness. Eileen smiled up at him and pressed against his knee. "I would like to learn some lessons, Daddy," she said. "I'm sure I'm big enough, and I'm growing, too." "Maybe you are," said Jake, "but don't grow too fast, little 'un. Don't get so big that you look down on your poor old daddy." "She'll never do that," said Maud, quickly. "No child of mine will ever do that, Jake." He smiled at her whimsically. Oh, I guess I'll hold my own among 'em, whatever they do. Now you go to sleep, my girl, and put all worries out of your head. I must be moving, but I'll look in presently to see how you are. So long." He bent and laid his cheek for a moment against her hand, then turned and softly left her. Maud watched the door close behind him, then spoke to the child beside her. "Eileen, darling, always remember that your daddy is the best and dearest man who ever lived." "Yes, Mummy, I know," said Eileen, with earnest, shining eyes. Jake went out to the stables and immersed himself in the day's work. He had always been a busy man, and time passed swiftly with him. He and his right-hand man, Sam Vickers, had brought the stud to a pitch of perfection that had earned for his animals a high place in the opinion of the racing community. He had, moreover, a reputation for straightness so unimpeachable that it had almost become a proverb up and down the country. Men said of Jake Bolton that his honor was such that it could stand by itself. Certainly no one ever questioned it. One of his horses was running at Greydown that afternoon, and at the end of the morning he returned to the house for a hasty lunch before leaving for the racecourse. All memory of Saltash's protégé had left him, but it returned to his mind as he saw the extra place laid at the table. He looked at his watch and realized that she ought to have arrived half an hour before. Bunny was also absent, presumably waiting for her. He paid Maud a brief visit before departing, and found her better. She was half dressed and lying on a couch in her room. He extracted a promise from her that she would not go down before tea, though she demurred somewhat on the score of the expected visitor. "Leave her to Bunny," said Jake. "He's quite capable of looking after her for an hour or two." "I think Bunny meant to go to the races," she said. Jake frowned. "Well, he can't, for once. Don't you fret now. She'll be all right." "Well, tell them to bring her straight up to see me when she arrives," Maud begged him. "I shan't be asleep, and really I am much better." "All right," he conceded. "I'll do that." He went out, and there fell the deep shining peace of a spring afternoon. Somewhere in the distance a cuckoo was calling softly, monotonously, seductively. A thrush was warbling in the terrace garden, and from her window Maud could see old Chops, the setter, curled up in a warm corner asleep. The children were all out on the downs, and the house was very quiet. Her thoughts turned dreamily to Saltash. What a pity he did not find some nice girl to marry. Her faith in him, often shaken and as often renewed, had somehow taken deeper root since their talk of the night before. Charlie was beginning to tire of his riotous living. He was beginning to want the better things. But in his present mood she saw a danger. He had come to a critical point in his career, and he would either go up or down. There would be no middle course with him. Knowing him as she did, she realized that a very little pressure would incline him either way. She felt as if his very life hung in the balance. It depended so vitally upon whence the pressure came. "If only some decent woman would fall in love with him," she sighed, and then found herself smiling wistfully at the thought that Saltash's heart would not be an easy thing to capture. He was far too accustomed to adulation wherever he went. "Besides, he's such a flirt," she reflected. "One never knows whether he is in earnest till the mischief is done." The cuckoo's soft persistence began somehow to seem like a penance. "When he has said it just like that 450 times, he'll be absolved and allowed to change his tune," was her thought. "I wonder if poor Charles Rex has said the same thing as often as that, and if that is why he is tired." A mist began to rise in her brain, making vague the cuckoo's call, blurring even the clear sweet notes of the thrush. A delicious drowsiness crept over her. She gave herself to it with conscious delight. It was so exquisite to feel the grim band that had bound her brow with such cruel tightness relax at last and fall away. Very blissfully she drifted into slumber. It was nearly 2 hours later that she became somewhat suddenly aware of feet sauntering under her window and young voices talking together. "Hello," said one abruptly. It was Bunny, speaking with careless friendliness. "Stand still a minute. There's an immense green caterpillar waving to me from your hat brim." A voice that was like a boy's, clear, bell-like, made instant response. "Oh, hell! Do take it off." Maud started wide awake with involuntary shrinking. There came a chuckle from Bunny, and after a pause, and the eloquent crunch of a heel on the gravel, his voice on a note of laughter. "I didn't say it." "Great Scott!" ejaculated the clear, boyish tones. "Do you mean you're shocked?" "Not at all," said Bunny courteously. "Well, then, what does it matter who said it?" demanded the other. "It doesn't matter," said Bunny, still suppressing merriment, "except that it isn't said in this house." "Oh, damn!" said the newcomer disconsolately. "Then I shall soon be sent back in disgrace." "Cheer up," said Bunny. "We don't convict on a first offence as a rule in this country." "But I shall never remember," groaned the other, and for the first time the words held a note that was not wholly boyish. It sounded wistful, even rather piteous. "People's ways are all so different. It's rather infernal. Trying to please everybody, you know, Bunny." "Never mind," said Bunny in a brotherly tone. "I'll kick you every time I see it coming, if you like." "Will you really?" "That would be jolly decent of you." The wistfulness vanished in a laugh that was quick and musical, wholly spontaneous. "You bet I will." "Right-o. Mind you do. Now get out of the way and see me jump that rose tree." There followed the light scamper of feet, and Maud raised herself swiftly and leaned forth in time to see an athletic little figure in navy blue, wearing a jaunty Panama hat, skim like a bird over a sweeping Dorothy Perkins just coming into bloom and alight on one leg with the perfect poise of a winged Mercury on the other side. 6. How to Manage Men. Bunny's lanky form followed and also cleared the rose tree with infinitely less grace, and again the girl laughed, her wide blue eyes alight with mirth. "What an antic! I thought you were going to pull up the rose bush with your heels. What are you doing that for?" Bunny's hands were on her shoulders. He was plainly enjoying himself thoroughly. "I'm feeling for the wings," he explained. "I'll swear you never jumped it. Where do you keep 'em?" She drew herself away from his touch. "No, I haven't got any. They don't grow on people like me. Don't let's stay here. I feel as if we're being watched." It was then that Maud spoke from her window with her quiet, gentle voice that yet held a certain authority. "Bunny, bring our visitor up to see me." Both Bunny and his companion started and looked up, and Maud saw the girl's face fully for the first time. A nervous little face with haunting wide blue eyes, made more intense by the short thick black lashes that surrounded them, eyes that seemed to plead for kindness. There was charm about the pointed chin, and a good deal of sweetness about the moulding of the mouth. But it was the eyes that held Maud's attention. They were the eyes of a creature who has known the wild agony of fear and is not easily reassured. Yet the face was the face of a child. She leaned out a little further on her sill and addressed the stranger. "Come up and speak to me," she said very kindly. "Bunny will show you the way." A shy, flickering smile answered her. She cast a questioning look at Bunny. "Yes, that's Maud, my sister," said Bunny. "Come along. This way." They entered the house by a French window, and Maud drew back into her room. What was there in that childish face that appealed so tremendously to her womanhood, wholly banishing her first involuntary sense of recoil? She could not have said, she was only conscious of the woman in her throbbing with a deep compassion. She stood and waited for the child's coming with a strangely poignant expectation. She heard Bunny's voice talking cheerily on the stairs, but his words provoked no response. She went to the door and opened it. Bunny was leading the way. In fact, his companion seemed to be lagging very considerably in the rear. Maud moved out into the passage, and Bunny stood to one side with a courteous gesture. "Mademoiselle Antoinette Larpent," he announced. The small figure in blue drew itself together with a certain bravado and came forward. Maud held out her hands. "My dear child," she said, "I expected you long ago." The hands she clasped were very small and cold. They did not cling to her, as she had half expected. The blue eyes flashed a single nervous glance and fell. "I'm sorry I'm late, madam," said the visitor in a low, punctilious voice. Maud felt amused and chilled in the same moment. "Come and sit down," she said. "We will have some tea upstairs. Bunny, go and order it, will you?" "With pleasure," said Bunny. "And may I return?" She smiled at him as she passed an arm about the girl's narrow shoulders. "Yes, you can come back when it's ready. Come in here, dear. You will like to take off your things. How long have you been here?" "Only 5 minutes," came the murmured answer. She thought it had a deprecating sound. "You must be tired," she said kindly. "You came from town? How is it you are so late? Did you miss your train?" "No, madam." Very nervously came the reply. The contrast between this and the boyish freedom of manner on the terrace a few seconds before would have been ludicrous if it had not been somehow pathetic. She passed on, too considerate to press for details. "Take off your hat and coat, won't you? When we have had some tea I will take you to your room." She was pleased to see that Charlie's protégée was garbed with extreme simplicity. Her fair hair, which had been closely shorn, was beginning to curl at the ends. She liked the delicate contrasting line of the black brows above the deep blue of the eyes. She noticed that the veins on the white temple showed with great distinctness. "Sit down," she said. "And now you must tell me what to call you. Your name is Antoinette, isn't it?" "I'm generally called Toby," said the visitor in a very shy voice. "But you will call me what you like." "Would you like me to call you Toby?" Maud asked. "Yes, please," said Toby, with unexpected briskness. Maud smiled. "Very well, my dear. Then that is settled. We are not going to be strangers, you and I. I expect you know that Lord Saltash and I are great friends, though I have never met your father." Toby's pale young face flushed suddenly. She was silent for a moment. Then, "Lord Saltash has been very good to me," she said in her shy voice. He saved me from drowning. Wasn't it nice of him to take the trouble?" "Quite nice of him," Maud agreed. "You must have been very frightened, weren't you?" Toby suppressed a shudder. "I was, rather. And the water was dreadfully cold. I thought we should never come up again. It was like " She stopped herself. "He said I was never to talk about it, or think about it, so I won't, if you don't mind." "Tell me about your father," said Maud sympathetically. For the second time the blue eyes flashed towards her. "Oh, he is still in a nursing home, and not allowed to see anyone." There was a hint of recklessness in her voice. "They say he'll get well again, but I don't know." "You are anxious about him," Maud said. "No, I'm not." Recklessness became something akin to defiance. "I don't like him much. He's so surly." "My dear!" said Maud, momentarily disconcerted. "Well, it's no good pretending I do when I don't, is it?" said Toby, and suddenly smiled at her with winning gracelessness. "It isn't my fault. We're not friends, never have been. Why," she made a little gesture of the hands, "we hardly know each other. I'd never been on the Night Moth before." "And you'll never go again," commented Bunny, entering at the moment. "Maud, do you know I took Miss Larpent," he turned deliberately to Toby, who snapped her fingers in airy acknowledgment, "to see the races instead of coming straight back, according to the boss's instructions." "Oh, so that's where you've been," said Maud. "Exactly so." Bunny pulled up a chair and disposed his long legs astride it. "We saw several events, and made a bit. Then forest fire let us down badly, and we lost the lot. After that we went into the paddock to cool ourselves and met the boss, who at once, somewhat rudely, ordered us home. I have an impression he's feeling waxy with me for some reason," Bunny ended, stroking his chin reflectively. "Daresay I shall get over it, however." "What a pity you went," said Maud. "Not at all," said Bunny. "We enjoyed it. It's fun doing naughty things sometimes, isn't it, Miss Larpent?" "Don't be an ass," said Toby tersely. Maud raised her brows, but Bunny grinned with delight. "Thank you, Toby. I take the hint. There shall be no more ceremony between us. Ah, there come the children along the path by the summer house." He sprang to the window and sent forth a yell, turning back almost instantly to say, "Sorry, Maud. I'm afraid I forgot your head. How is it?" He did not wait for her reply, but leaned out again immediately to address the advancing children with noisy gaiety. Toby looked up at Maud, hesitated, and rose. "Let us go and have tea with the children," she said. "It will be quieter for you." Maud put out a gentle hand to her. "No, dear, you stay with me. Bunny may, if he likes." This time Toby's fingers closed tightly upon her own. "Sure?" said Toby. "Quite sure," said Maud, smiling at her. Toby turned sharply and pinched Bunny's elbow as he leaned from the window. He drew himself in and stared at her. "You're making too much noise," she told him curtly. "You go and racket downstairs." Bunny's eyes widened for a second in indignant amazement, then abruptly he threw up his chin and laughed. "I like you," he declared. "You're the cockiest thing in girls I've ever seen." Toby pulled at his elbow like a small, persistent dog. "Go on," she commanded. "Go down to them. Mrs. Bolton and I want to have our tea alone. I'll come and play with you presently, if you're good." It was spoken wholly without coquetry, much as an elder brother might speak to a younger. It was plain that she meant to have her way, though Maud, who knew that there was a very strong mixture of stubbornness in Bunny, wondered much if she would get it. Amusement, however, kept the upper hand with him. Toby's treatment evidently appealed strongly to his sense of humour. Perhaps her determination also made its impression upon him, for after a little more chaff on his part and brisk insistence on hers he departed, laughing, to join the children. Toby saw him to the door and returned calm and triumphant. "Well done," said Maud. "You know how to deal with spoiled children, evidently." Toby looked at her sharply as she sat down, almost as if she expected a double meaning to the words. "Do you mean men?" she said, and for an instant her childish face wore a look of contempt. "Oh, anyone can manage men, given a fair chance. There's not much cleverness needed for that." She spoke with the decision of one who knew, and in spite of the difference of years between them Maud could not question her confidence. She had a curious feeling that, either by experience or intuition, this girl knew more than she. She made no comment, therefore, and after a moment Toby spoke her last word on the subject with characteristic brevity. "There's only one rule to follow with men, that is if you want any peace at all. Make up your mind and stick to it. If they don't like it, let 'em go to—" She checked suddenly, and coloured deeply under Maud's eyes. "I mean, let 'em do the other thing," she ended, on a note that somehow seemed to ask for pardon. "I see," said Maud gently, in a tone that conveyed it. Toby threw her a little smile, half grateful and half mischievous; and curiously, in that moment a bond was formed between them which was destined to endure. 7. The Promise. There was undoubtedly a frown on Jake's usually serene countenance when he walked up the great stable yard a little later that evening, and came upon Bunny lounging in a doorway with his hands in his pockets talking to one of the men. "Look here, young feller, I want a word with you," he said with his customary directness, and laid a somewhat peremptory hand upon the boy's shoulder. Bunny, with a cigarette between his lips, turned and laughed at him without a hint of discomfiture. "All right, boss, I'll come," he said, and linked his arm in Jake's with boyish friendliness. He was half a head taller than Jake, but the look of power that was so apparent in the older man was wholly absent in him. He moved his long limbs with a loose swing that lacked energy, though it seemed to denote a certain restlessness. "Wonder what you'll do without me here when I go to Charlie," he remarked, as Jake did not immediately speak. "I should say the sooner you go the better," said Jake rather brutally, "if I were only sure you were going to the right place." "Have a smoke," said Bunny, with unruffled amiability, proffering his case. Jake pushed it from him with a curt sound of dissatisfaction. "All right, don't," said Bunny with instant haughtiness, and returned it to his pocket. He would have withdrawn his hand from his brother-in-law's arm, but Jake retained it there forcibly, steering for his own private office at the end of the stable yard. Bunny submitted, but his face grew ominously dark as they passed in silence between the long rows of loose boxes in the soft spring twilight. As they neared Jake's room he drew himself together with the action of a man who braces his muscles for a sudden strain, and in a moment he was older, less defiant, more dignified. "That's better," said Jake, making him enter first. "There are times, Sir Bernard Bryan, when I want to lick you as you never, unfortunately, were licked in your early youth." Other times, like the present, when the breed gets the better of me, and I can only stand outside and admire." "Oh, don't be a blithering idiot, Jake," said Bunny in hot discomfiture. Jake's hand grasped his shoulder. "Sit down and bring yourself to my level for a minute. Maybe I am a blithering idiot, maybe I'm not. But I could take you by the heels and dip you in the horse pond round the corner if I felt that way. So you'd better keep as civil as possible. It won't make a mite of difference to me, but it may to you." Bunny sat down, breathing hard. His cigarette fell to the ground, and he stooped for it, but Jake, still holding his shoulder, stooped also, picked it up, and flung it straight out of the window. "You smoke too many of 'em," he said as he did it. "Damn you!" said Bunny in a voice of concentrated fury. He would have sprung to his feet, but Jake's hands were upon him like iron clamps, and kept him seated. He spoke, his voice soft, unhurried, even humorous. "I'm only a beastly groom, you know, Bunny. You don't expect good manners from me, do you?" Bunny shrank a little, as if something in the words pierced him. Jake's eyes, very bright but wholly free from anger, looked straight into his. For some reason he ceased to strain against the compelling hands and sat passive. There followed a somewhat tense silence before he said: "Well, go on. I knew you wanted to row me about something. What's it all about?" His voice was sullen, but his attitude was no longer hostile. He looked ashamed. Jake sat down suddenly on the edge of the writing table. "Say, Bunny," he said gently, "do you know you're the only man in the world that can send me to perdition and not have his teeth knocked down his throat for his officiousness?" Bunny looked up at him, and in a moment, like the flash of sunshine from behind a cloud, he was smiling. "Oh, get out, Jake. I suppose you're going to wipe the floor with me now. I didn't mean it, and I'm sorry. Let's get on from there." His hand gripped Jake's hard. There was something very winning about him at the moment, something that appealed strongly to the older man, though he did not instantly reply. He kept the boy's hand in his for a moment, and his eyes were very kindly as he looked into the thin young face. "Guess you know I'm pretty fond of you, my son," he said at length. "But I don't figure to let you go to the devil unhindered on that account." Bunny whistled. "Who's going?" "Oh, don't be an ass, Jake, will you?" "No, I won't," said Jake. "At least not the soft variety. Reckon I've been too soft with you, Bunny, as long as I've known you." Bunny stirred restlessly in his chair. "Think so?" he said. "Well, it's a good fault, old chap. I can't stand bullying from anyone. Makes me see red at once." "I know," Jake said. "I've never bullied you, anyway. But I'm on the war path now, and you've got to take your physic whether you like it or not. Say, Bunny, how much money did you drop at the races this afternoon?" "What's that to you?" said Bunny. Jake's face hardened a little. "Well, I expected that," he said. "Afraid to tell me, eh?" "Not in the least afraid," said Bunny. "I dispute your right to know, that's all." "I see." Jake regarded him with a very direct scrutiny. "I'm to be kept in my place, is that it?" Bunny colored. "That's the 4th time you've called me a bounder since we came in. What do you mean by it, Jake?" "What do I mean?" Jake spoke rather sadly. "Well, maybe that's just what I do mean, Bunny. You're beginning to bound." "Rot," said Bunny, though he colored more deeply than before. "You know there isn't another fellow anywhere that I respect as I respect you. But, dash it, Jake, you must let me grow." "I want you to," said Jake. "But for the Lord's sake, grow straight." He reached out and took Bunny by the shoulder. "I'm going to ask a big thing of you, sonny, but I guess I shall know by the way you take it how much your respect for me is worth." "What is it?" said Bunny. "Just this." Jake leaned forward. There was speculation in his look. "I want you to chuck racing altogether for a year. There." "Chuck racing?" Bunny sat up very straight. "Jake, why on earth should I?" Jake's hand closed upon him. He was smiling a little, but there was something relentless behind his smile. "Oh, just to please me," he said. "That's all." Bunny stared at him. "Chuck racing," he said again. "Jake, you're mad." "No, I guess not," said Jake imperturbably. "I'm not arguing any against racing. Played straight, it's the best game in the world. I'm just asking a personal favor of you. There's nothing to be hurt about it in that." There was an ominous gleam in Bunny's eyes. He looked as if he were on the verge of open rebellion, but with his last words Jake's steady arm suddenly went round his shoulders and gave him a hard, brotherly squeeze. "Don't do it if you're going to hate me for it," he said. "Reckon I can't afford that. I knew it was a gamble when I started. If I can't win, I'll back out right now." "Jake!" Quick feeling sounded in Bunny's voice. He turned sharply, and for an instant his cheek was against the kindly hand with the old boyish gesture of affection. Then he looked Jake full in the eyes and laughed. "Jake, I say, don't be a beast. You know I'll do anything under the sun to please you." "You'll do this?" said Jake. "Tell me why first," said Bunny. "Because I want to know if you've got the grit, for one thing. And for another, that girl who has just come here is a gambler to the backbone, and I won't have her encouraged." "How on earth do you know that?" said Bunny. "Did Charlie tell you?" "No." Jake's voice was grim. "You don't suppose I'd take his word for anything, do you? I saw it in her face this afternoon. I know that gambling fever, and well, I'm inclined to think she's had it in one form or another all her life." "She's quite a nice kid," said Bunny, condescendingly. Jake smiled, but the firmness remained. "She's not your sort, Sir Bernard Bryan," he remarked, "and I rather guess she could teach you more than you could teach her." "What do you mean?" Jake turned aside to shut the window in preparation for departure. "Well, sonny," he said in a marked drawl, "I guess I mean just that. If you aren't sharp enough to draw your own conclusions, that's none of my business." He turned round and looked at Bunny with absolute directness. "And that other proposition of mine, did I understand you to fall in with it? Chuck racing for a year, you mean?" Bunny got up. His face was still red, but it showed no resentment. "It's rather much, isn't it, Jake?" "Too much?" questioned Jake. Bunny hesitated. "Well, a year make it 3 months," he said coaxingly. Jake came to him square and resolute. "I'll make it 6 months, Bunny," he said, "if you can tell me you didn't drop more than £50 this afternoon." Bunny turned crimson. "This afternoon was an exception," he said hastily. "I thought so," said Jake dryly. "But, damn it, it's rather a heavy penalty to pay," protested Bunny. He thrust out an impulsive hand. "I say, let me off, old feller. I won't do it again." Jake's fingers closed and held. He said nothing, merely waited. And very suddenly, after his own headlong fashion, Bunny made unconditional surrender. "Oh, get out, you beastly groom," he said, and wrung Jake's hand with all the force he could muster. "All right. It's done." Jake made an odd movement as of tension relaxed, though none had been apparent in his bearing. He struck Bunny on the shoulder, the blow of a friend. "That's the biggest thing you've ever done for me, pard," he said with a smile. "Reckon I shan't forget it. Take it out of me next time." "You bet I will," said Bunny. He linked his arm through Jake's and gripped it hard. His eyes were shining as they passed out together into the gathering dusk. He had made a considerable sacrifice, but Jake had the gift of making him realize that it was worth while. End of chapters 5, 6, and 7.